Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ultimate Beach Boys Iceberg. This is going to be Tier 2. If you haven't seen Tier 1, I'd probably go check that out right around now before you watch this video. It's still going to be here whenever you leave. Don't worry, no need to. Yeah, Tier 1 was just all about the basic information, and Tier 2 is where we start to get into the meat and potatoes of the subjects. I would make a joke about the vegetables song, but wordplay is not really my thing. But with all that said, this is Tier 2 of the Beach Boys Iceberg, and I hope you enjoy it. The first entry on here is pet sounds, and I have no clue why this wasn't put in Tier 1. I mean, even before I really started to get into the Beach Boys myself, I knew what pet sounds was. I knew Wouldn't It Be Nice, God Only Knows, and I even just knew for some reason I just wasn't made for these times. I don't remember how I knew that one, but I didn't make the iceberg, I just talk about it. But as a lot of people know, Pet Sounds was basically just a response to the Beatles' Rubber Soul, and after Brian had a mental breakdown while on tour, he took a break from, touring, and wrote some songs with his songwriting partner, Tony Asher, and used the Wrecking Crew, which was a group of some of the best session musicians in the LA area, used by mainly Phil Spector in his Wall of Sound approach, which I'll talk about that here in a bit. And when the rest of the band came back, they recorded the vocals, and the rest is history. But since we're on the topic of pet sounds, I may as well talk about Trombone Dixie, which was just a little instrumental jam that Brian made and used the Wrecking Crew on, and also Hold On To Your Ego, which was later changed to I Know There's an Answer because of a supposed drug reference. Which, that there is, but it was supposed to portray the negative side of using LSD, so. The Smile Sessions, or Smile, is probably about the Smile Sessions box set, which was released in 2011 and is 48 minutes long and had 5 CDs along with it, and devoted 2 of them to the Good Vibrations and Heroes and Villains sessions. Actually kind of crazy how critically well this was received. The lowest score I could find was a 96% from Metacritic. You could take their opinion with a grain of salt like I do, but I think that's still pretty impressive. But since I didn't see, Smile, as in the album Smile by itself, I would just like to explain it a little bit in detail here. Smile was supposed to be the follow-up album to Pet Sounds, and the single Good Vibrations was released to pretty much promote it, and people were calling Brian Wilson a pop genius at the time. And then he kind of had a mental breakdown. Mike Love chased away another one of Brian's songwriting partners at Van Dyke Parks. Mike Love also didn't really like the project too much, and so he was kind of really against it. And so the compromise album Smiley Smile was made. And I'm pretty sure in the back of that album you can see a house with the original Smile logo on it, which is pretty neat. Mike Love hate. This is just about all the things that fans hate Mike Love for. I could really go on for a while, but I'll just give some examples. There's his 1992 interview, which I will link in the description. The interview is around 2 hours long, somewhere in that range. He actually talks about Smile in there for a bit, but it's worth it to get to that part, I'm just saying. I'm not going to spoil any of the rest. His hatred of pet sounds, in fact, he's been, it's a bit of a myth, but people said that he said only the ears of a dog could hear this about pet sounds whenever he first heard it. There's also the fact that he hated Smile, and he didn't really help Brian whenever he was struggling mentally. He did try by hiring Eugene Landy, which may have been worse in the long run, but we'll get to that series of events here soon. One last thing is that he pretty much just had a huge ego and bogged the group down creatively, which kinda sucks. David Marks. David Marks was one of the early members of the Beach Boys, and he played rhythm guitar on the first 4 albums. Though he was uncredited, he still remained close friends with the members of the band, and whenever Carl was battling cancer in 1997, David returned to the band as a lead guitar player until his diagnosis of hepatitis C in 1999. He also returned for the 2012 reunion album, and created his own band called The Marksmen, which is a good pun, and also all I know about the band, and will probably ever know, though. I was thinking about doing like a series of Beach Boys related side projects, like Mike Love's band Celebration, the Salute to NASCAR David Marks did with Mike and Bruce. So I was thinking about doing that. If you think that is a good idea, then let me know. If I get around to it after making this whole Iceberg series, then I will probably do that. Though I don't want to become just the person who does these Beach Boys videos. I want to explore other like bands and stuff like that. It's a music channel after all, just not a Beach Boys channel. One final fact on this topic: during David Mark's initial run with the band, he was only 14 or 15 years old, based on different sources I found. Some say 15, some say 14. So, Murray Wilson. Murray Wilson is the father of the Wilson brothers, co-songwriter in the early days, and he was also an abusive person who, among other things, used a glass eye to punish them, which is just beyond odd. And he also did one other thing, which I will get to later in, I think, this tier? Yeah, probably this tier. There's also a series, which I'm going to cover probably later in that Beach Boys related thing, called Murray Wilson Rock and Roll Dad. It's quite funny. I'd give it a look before I cover it. So I should have it linked in the description, because it's funny, again, as I said. Al Jardine. The original rhythm guitarist of the group and occasional lead vocalist and songwriter, he also played double bass on the first single, Surfin', which is quite neat. And as mentioned previously, he left the Beach Boys and then came back after David Marks left. And if you like the song Sloop John B, then you can thank him for that, because he introduced the song to Brian, which is a fact I didn't actually know before this. I thought that it was somebody else, or Brian just thought of it himself. You know. Brian is deaf in one ear. This is just a fact that Brian is deaf in one ear, and also why he mixed in mono for all the albums he produced. And the way he became deaf, well, specifically in his left ear, is really only up to speculation. And the two main things I could see is that the explanation that Brian gave, which was that a kid hit him with a metal pipe whenever he was playing, or the less likely one, but still possible one, is that Murray Wilson hit him with a 2x4. And personally, I think it's the former, because, well, it's a little bit less dark. But tell me what you think in the comments below. Love and Mercy. On the topic of depressing things, Love and Mercy was a biopic that was made in 2014, and I actually watched it for the making of this video, and all I gotta say is it's pretty good and a lot depressing, not even kind of depressing. It looks at the Pet Sound sessions and also the Eugene Landy stuff, and it flips between the two. It's genuinely one of the best biopics I've ever seen, and it's only 2 hours long and on Hulu, so you can go ahead and watch it. It also features Paul Dano as Brian Wilson, which is a bit weird to me. I mean, like, they kind of do actually look similar. So insert a Paul Dano meme here.
A is for
The Beach Boys Today. The album released just before Pet Sounds. It's actually somewhat reminiscent of it, being the most musically sophisticated one to that date. It's also notable for having the hit Help Me Rhonda on it as well, which Al Jardine sung a lead on, so that's pretty neat. That's about it for this one. I'd probably say my favorite song is Help Me Rhonda. I don't really listen to this album too much. I've listened to it maybe once or twice before, but it's kind of boring actually to me, knowing what's to come after that. That being, well, Pet Sounds, obviously. Competition with the Beatles. This is in reference to the back and forth rivalry between the Beatles, specifically Brian Wilson and Paul McCartney. The Beach Boys being one of the few American bands not taken out of a job by the Beatles, and they also inspired one another to create and innovate more than any other band. The Beatles released Rubber Soul, then the Beach Boys released Pet Sounds, and the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's, which I think Pet Sounds is better than Sgt. Pepper's, but still. 3 of the greatest albums of all time right there. And personally, I think if Smile got released, then the Beach Boys would be considered less an oldies act and more of like musicians on the level of the Beatles, like how they're recognized today for all their contributions to music.
Bruce Johnson. Bruce Johnson was originally added on as a touring member due to Brian's mental breakdown, which I talked about earlier. He was brought on to play bass and keyboards, and then officially brought on as a member during the Pet Sound sessions, and was a member of the band from then on. He was on the 2012 reunion album as well, and is also part of Mike Love's touring version of the band. I would like to say, out of like all of the people vocally in the group, I think Bruce Johnson is probably my third favorite vocalist after Carl and Brian, just due to the fact that his part on God Only Knows towards the end, that's beautiful, and God Only Knows is my favorite song. So, Bruce Johnson is also the only Beach Boy to win a Grammy for Song of the Year in 1976 with a Barry Manilow song called I Write the Songs, which, no you didn't, Barry, Bruce did. Wrong. Why are you trying to take credit for his stuff, hey? Dennis was the only surfer in the group. Now, this is just the fact that Dennis was literally the only person who actually surfed in the group. I know that was a bit repetitive, but hey, he was also the person to suggest writing songs about surfing, which is, I mean, like one of the best suggestions in music history, so thank you. Thank you for that one. For some more proof that nobody in the Beach Boys actually knew how to surf besides Dennis, I'd like to show to you a 1976 clip from the Brian's Back era of him trying to go surfing with Dan Aykroyd of Ghostbusters fame whenever Dan Aykroyd was on SNL. So I'd like to present you that.
Are you Brian Wilson?
Yes, I am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson. We're from the Highway Patrol, Surf Squad.
Hello.
Brian, we have a citation here for you, sir, under Section 936A of the California Catch a Wave Statute. Brian, you're in violation of paragraph 12. Failing to surf, neglecting to use a state beach for surfing purposes, and otherwise avoiding surfboards, surfing, and surf.
Surfing? I don't want to go surfing. Now, look, you guys, I'm not going. You get your hair wet, you get sand in your shoes. Okay, I'm not going.
Come on, Brian. Let's go surfing now.
Everybody's learning how. Come on a safari with us. Come on.
Let's go.
All right. Okay, let's go. Let's go surfing. Come on.
Okay, Mr. Wilson, here's your wave. Go. But I haven't waxed my board yet. You should have thought of that sooner. Let's go. We'll all be climbing underwater. We're gonna take real soon. We're waxing down our surf. We can't wait for two. We'll all be going to the sun.
A bit of a long clip, yes, I know. However, I did edit it down, so I mean, like, I tried to make it shorter, but it would kind of skip out the funnier parts of the video. How about that? Paul McCartney's favorite song. So this is basically just about how Paul McCartney's favorite song is God Only Knows, off of Pet Sounds, which, I mean, I guess the guy has good taste, yeah. It's not really much to say about it. The Wall of Sound technique. Now, this is about the Wall of Sound technique that was pioneered by Phil Spector with groups such as the Ronettes, which, fun fact about them, Brian actually has a tape loop of their song Be My Baby, just on the chorus of that, just on a loop, and it's like a bit weird, but alright. Brian was also a fan of Phil Spector, and used his own modified version of it on a lot of the following albums, such as like Pet Sounds, obviously. Phil Spector is also probably the reason why Brian used the Wrecking Crew on Pet Sounds, and also due to the fact that, well, he was looking for a musically more diverse style than before. I would also like to say, I'm sorry if it doesn't sound like I'm putting like emotion into my voice at all. It's allergy season where I'm at, so my voice is kind of like killing me right now, and so is my allergies, so that's about it in terms of that. California Dreamin'. This is about the Beach Boys cover of California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas, and if I'm going to be honest, it's better than the original version, and no, I'm not saying that because of Stranger Things, because I'm not truly a fan of that show. The song is very good, so I'd give it a listen. Also, John Phillips, the guy who wrote and sung the song as well, makes an appearance as a saxophone playing priest, which is pretty cool. I would like to say, in terms of the song itself, it has Al Jardine on the intro and like the chorus part of it, and Carl Wilson on the verses, which is a very weird combination in my mind, but somehow works out. Also on Mike Love's and Dean Torrance's record, Rock and Roll City, there's an alternate version of the song with Mike singing lead, which is pretty neat actually. So what I'm going to do here is basically just a lightning round of greatest hits compilations, because there's not too much to these, so I just want to get these over and done quickly to move on to the next entries. Endless Summer. This is one of the Beach Boys' greatest hits albums that featured songs from mainly the early years, specifically 1962 to 1965, and it's pretty good because, well, it's a greatest hits album, and if it's not good, that's kind of weird. But if you can get your hands on it, I would probably get it. The second of the two greatest hits compilations is Spirit of America. It's a lesser known greatest hits album for the fact that it lacks the actual hits. It features songs I don't really care much for, such as Dance Dance Dance, Little Honda, and Custom Machine. The biggest hits from this album I can think of are Fun 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 and Barbara Ann. I don't know, those two, I mean, like, yeah, they're alright songs. Quite good, actually. I like Fun Fun Fun, just, that's me personally, but, you know, you have Pet Sounds, you have Sunflower, Slip On Through, and All I Want to Do, and also Do It Again. That also is a good song from the 2020 album. And also I Hear Music, that's another good song. So I mean, like, you're leaving on all these good songs that aren't on a greatest hits album, and then you put Little Honda on there. It's like, what are you doing? I guess this is supposed to be more like the Fun in the Sun greatest hits album, but if it's like the Fun in the Sun album, then where are songs like Shut Down and Surfing USA? Like, for the longest time, like, that's the song that the Beach Boys were known for. But nonetheless, I'll move on to the third Beach Boys greatest hits album, and probably the best one in my opinion, that being Sounds of Summer. This one is a 30-song long greatest hits record, which featured a lot of material that wasn't on the first two, like Good Vibrations and God Only Knows, which is quite silly whenever you think about it, and I don't know why they weren't on the first two. But that pretty much just ends it off for the trilogy of Beach Boys greatest hits. Brian's nervous breakdown on a plane. On December 23rd, 1964, the Beach Boys were on a plane headed back home whenever Brian suffered a panic attack, which was acted out in the previously mentioned Love and Mercy movie, and it actually led to Bruce Johnson coming into the band. And also, we wouldn't have gotten Pet Sounds, which is, again, that would probably be a bummer. Okay, so I couldn't find a clip from the Love and Mercy movie. However, I did find a clip from another movie made in 2000. I think it was direct-to-TV, actually. It was called The Beach Boys: An American Family, which I've never seen because it's actually 2 hours long. So I might get around to it actually pretty soon here. I don't know if it's on the Iceberg or not, but we'll see. The abandonment of Smile. This is just about the fact that Smile as a project was abandoned for the longest time due to Brian's mental health struggles and pushback from Mike Love. It was eventually finished in the previously mentioned 2011 box set, and in a more stripped down version in the 2004 live show entitled Brian Wilson Presents Smile, which I unironically like better than the Smile Sessions box set. Capitol Records. This is the label that the Beach Boys released their albums under from 1962 to 1967, and they also created their own label after this, that being Brother Records, due to their creative differences with Capitol, and also the fact that they found out later on that Capitol actually didn't pay them. There was actually discrepancies in how much they should have been paid and how much they were getting paid. So, yeah, that's probably a good reason to leave a company. 2012 Reunion. This is about their 2012 reunion, which started with a remake of their song Do It Again, which I've been using as background music for Tier 1 and this tier, and probably going to keep using because it's a really good song, and also a good song to start off a reunion with. They teamed back up with David Marks to make the album That's Why God Made the Radio, which is a pretty good album, and I'd give it a listen if you can, though it does have a kind of sad ending due to the fact that shortly after, Mike Love, who technically owned the Beach Boys name and licensed to tour under it, fired Brian Wilson from his own band. And my thoughts on that are, well, if you're gonna fire the guy who, kind of help you build your career, that's kind of a dumb move. However, he did help write a lot of the songs as well. Mike Love did. I think that one without the other is not the Beach Boys. It's just not. Brian Wilson's drug use. This is a very sad topic, which is the fact that Brian's use of drugs that nearly killed him and left him in bed for 3 years. And I know that Pet Sounds was aided by the use of LSD, but still quite sad. But on that note, that is the end of Tier 2, and now in the next video we're going to be moving on to Tier 3. Just to close out this video, I'd like to say thank you for the support on the last one. I think it got over 500 views and like 20 likes and something, but like the amount of subscribers I got from that video was insane. So I'd like just thank you all, especially the Beach Boys subreddit itself. I would also like to thank Willing Antelope. Thank you for letting me use this iceberg. Could not have done it without you. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.